Hello, class. It's Miss Roberts here, and tonight we're going to talk about enhancing communication in groups. Let's begin. All right, so let me go ahead and put this up, and I'll be moving myself around just in case. So let's go ahead and begin. All right, so first we're going to talk about interpersonal needs and the interpersonal needs that will be gained or can be obtained in small group communication. You might recognize this before, especially if you've taken a psychology or sociology class. But in essence, with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's theorized that all humans have basic needs that can be arranged in a hierarchy. And people don't concern themselves with higher needs until the lower needs are met. So let's explore what those are. Okay. So when you see this chart, we have physiological needs, safety needs, belonging needs, esteem needs, and needs for self-actualization. So in essence, in order to achieve self-actualization or esteem or belongingness, we must have our base needs first, like physiological needs, eating, drinking, breathing well. And then we have safety, making sure that our bodies and minds are safe from harm. Then you need to belong in groups and be a part of community, have self-esteem and a strong self-concept, and achieve our ultimate goals in life with self-actualization. All right. So that was just a brief overview. Let's take a deeper dive into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So like I said before, we have our physiological needs that needs to be met, and our physiological needs are base needs that keeps us alive, such as need for air, water, and food. But then we have the safety need for security and protection, both emotionally and physically. Then we need to belong as a part of a group, part of an organization, and feel a part of our community. We can find community in our teams and our small groups, and that can help fulfill those needs as well. Then we have esteem needs. So, in addition to having our three most base needs met, we want to make sure to have self-respect and have the respect and esteem of others. And then self-actualization, when all the previous needs are met, self-actualization will allow us to live our life to the fullest. Next, we're going to talk about the Tuckman's stages of group formation. And in your experience, you might have identified with some of these steps. The following steps are forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. So in this diagram is a visual representation of what those steps are. When we form, we're introduced to our team, and then as we figure out our role and our places in the groups, there might be more room for conflict as as we figure our way in the group and how to do things, how to proceed with the objectives of the group. But then those conflicts stabilize in the norming stage, and then the group performs at its optimum potential in the performing stage, and then the adjourning stage will be the end of the group, the ending of the group project or the completion of the group project. All right. So that was just an additional overview. Let's go ahead and break it down some more. So with the forming phase, and in our class, we form by meeting our groups. We do the group contract to establish not only who you are as a group and developing a group nickname for yourself, but also establishing who you want to be, what are some of your ground rules to make the group run smoothly, and getting to know each other. In addition, we have the group adventure project where you hang out either virtually or in person and get to know each other in a lower stakes type of assignment. But the assignment is not only to have you say what your goals for both yourself and the group are, but to get to know each other. And then as we go along, once you initially figured out how you guys work, what are your goals, and what are your strengths that you bring as individual to make the group better, then we go into more challenging projects. But then with the storming phase, we are taking a bunch of individuals, putting them together, and putting them into a group. So this can, not always, but this can breed conflict. We have our struggle or the dichotomy between being an individual and not having our place in the group, and conflicts can emerge. But once that stage happens and we're able to vibe as a group, then norms happen. We figure out, hey, this is my place in the group, this is how we communicate. Time conflicts can arise and those get resolved, and you're able to go on to the next phase, which is the performing stage, where all of those previous conflicts are ironed out and you're able to perform your most productive work. Now, at the end of the assignment, the end of the job, or in our case, the end of the class, that's when we adjourn and you do a self-evaluation in our class. But of course, as the instructor, I evaluate you and your work. But there are some additional steps. So, for example, you have the new group member formation. With the new member, reformation process presents its own stages of development, such as anticipation, encounter, and adjustment. So, say for instance, at the job, you have a new employee that's joining in the team, or in some cases, there might be multiple group projects where groups are shuffled about. We have the anticipation of the new group member, just curiosity of like who they are and how can they incorporate themselves into the group. Then we encounter, so we modify initial expectations and we adjust those newcomers and they continue on with the group as normal. So next we're going to talk about listening. Listening is such an important component of communication that we don't give enough credit to. We have different types of listening that can help enhance communication in your group and just enhance your ability as a listener in general. First, we have content-oriented listening versus time-oriented listening. So with content-oriented listening, this is listening for detailed content, and those who are able to absorb information can help write notes, help with agendas or meeting minutes, and help analyze situations which will be beneficial to the group. But then there's time-oriented listeners that stays aware of the time, can take in very concentrated, brief information, and keeps the group on schedule. Next, we have people versus action-oriented listeners. With people-oriented listeners, we're more comfortable with listening to other people's emotions. So, of course, the group is about being on task and on target, but we're not robots. We're people. So we have emotions. We engage in conflicts. We need to resolve those conflicts. We have things outside of the class or the job that affects us. So having an empathetic listener or developing those people-oriented, empathetic listening skills is very important. Then also we have action-oriented listening. People who are brief, get to the point, likes to get things done, and it helps keep the group focused and on task. So how can you become a better, more active listener? First thing you do is stop what you're doing and get rid of distractions. So making sure you're tuning everything out and listening to them, looking at the person directly, even those nonverbal cues with eye contact to make sure that, hey, you are listening to them and you're letting them know non-verbally that you are listening to them. Listen, match what their person saying with nonverbal cues, matching those tones, asking appropriate information to gain more information, and determine if we're listening for feelings or clarification. So say, for instance, in a more interpersonal context, You might have been in a situation where you're trying to solve a person's problem, but the person just needs a listening ear. And sometimes that happens, or sometimes you might have to take the emotion out of the situation and provide clarification and direction. So it just depends on the context. But then we have paraphrasing content. So that's very important because paraphrasing can mean that, hey, we are listening, but it helps you check if you are receiving the messages properly. So thinking about the transactional communication model, we have the channel, messages, sender, receiver. So it all goes back to that. So by paraphrasing, you're confirming to the other communicator there that, hey, I either A, listened and interpreted the message properly, or B, I didn't interpret the message properly, so you can go ahead and clarify right then and there. Then we have eye contact. Eye contact is cultural. So in US culture, Western cultures in general, direct eye contact means that we're engaged, that we're paying attention, and some of the other reasons that we want to maintain eye contact while talking to others is that, hey, we want to listen, that we like the other person, that we want to persuade and have influences on other persons. So if we want to do that, we need to look directly at them. We have a high need for approval or affiliation. So making direct eye contact to a person or a group or audience can help you make that connection and help read those nonverbal communication signals. And we want to, of course, seek a response to someone. We have to look at them to do so. But next, we have vocal cues. So it's not just about nonverbal communication, but also how we talk to our group members. So there is a concept called paralanguage where we have pitch, rate, volume, quality of voice. So whether you have a warm speaking voice or warm tones or very reserved, short, monotone, people have different responses to that. We also have different cues for perception of competence. So are we clearly connecting with the audience? Are we clearly using our voice to convey information? Are we clear? Are we strong in our voice? But they don't happen in isolation. And of course, be evaluating the context of other communicative behaviors. So paralanguage can give us a glimpse of the emotional states of the person, but it might not tell the whole story. So just be cautious. All right. So next up, we have personal space and proxemics. So this is definitely important for in-person communication, and it studies how the distance between people and objects communicate something. So in general, the closer we are to people in space, it indicates the stronger interpersonal relationship we have with the person. And the farther away they are, distance-wise, the less connection or affiliation we have with the person. All right. So with personal space, we have intimate zones versus personal zones. So I like to think only a few people that you know can actually do this to you and you not freak out. So, for example, those who have close conversations are able to be in that personal bubble. So, personal space is also cultural, similar to eye contact. So, say if you spread your arms out this way and have your arm span, that would be, say, for instance, your imaginary personal bubble. So, with that imaginary personal bubble, for those who go into that space where they can touch your body or they can pop in that bubble, usually is that intimate zone. So, that is the zone where reserved for people who know you, people who are close to you, and that's where we have personal conversation that we indicate that we know someone, but not everybody can't be in that space. But then we have the personal zone, so it's within that bubble or a little bit outside of that bubble. It's in conversations between family and friends or people that are known. So these are the two zones where people know you. But then we have social versus public zones. So think about maybe how a classroom set up, 4 to 12 feet apart, and that's for group interactions, similar to what a team or the space where a team would be. And then we have our public zones where you're just out and about. Think about the distance between people in the store or at the mall or outside on campus walking around. Unless they know each other, everybody's pretty much spread far apart. And it's also a similar different distance between teachers, public speakers, and their audiences. And we also have an interesting concept about seating arrangements and what that means for communication between the individuals. So, for example, say if you have your group meetings, you have more interaction in a roundtable discussion, so everybody's equal distance apart and they're facing each other. Then we have cooperative seating. So this is reminiscent of tutoring. So when I was a tutor, I would either sit like this or side by side, generally side by side, but it's a more equal type of setting. So say if you're working with someone and working with one person, this is more of an egalitarian cooperative seating type situation. But then we have competitive seating. So I'm thinking about maybe a chess match of some sort, where one person is in front of the seat, excuse me, one person is seated across to another, or a difference in power. So you might have a boss or a teacher on one side and a student on the other side. And then we have a more classroom or presentation setting where you have one person facing the classroom or facing the audience in front. So it's one versus everybody else. So seating arrangements can also indicate leadership. So for example, the person seated at the head of a rectangular table is usually the leader. So you think of entering someone's home, especially with rectangular tables versus rounded tables, usually the people or either the couple or the people who own the home are at the ends and all the guests are sitting at the perimeter. More outspoken dominant individuals usually choose to sit at the heads of the table, and people who have more higher status are given more personal space that proceeds out of respect. All right, next up we have nonverbal communication and persuasion. So persuasion is really important when dealing with communication, especially if you want to get a certain course of action pushed forward or agreed upon amongst the group, or say if you're at work and you have a proposal that you want to convince your colleagues to take on. There are many ways and many reasons why we want to be persuasive in our communication, especially with small group communication. But we want to make sure our nonverbals match what we say and not verbally convey that, hey, we're trustworthy and that we're persuasive. So, for example, persuasive communicators have more animated facial expressions. They may smile more. They may use gestures to emphasize their points, nod their heads more, just to indicate not only do we have command of the situation, but that they're friendly and they want to persuade, turn on that charm, if you will. Other ways that we use nonverbal communication is maybe leaning forward when we're more interested, smiling when we agree, nodding heads when we agree, shifting in posture or breaking eye contact when we're not in agreement. So just trying to get those vibes, if you will, from your teammates. And of course, we can't just rely on nonverbal communication alone. But if there's an issue or if you're in agreement with something, verbal communication is key. All right. So we just talked about a couple of ways, both verbally and non-verbally, that we can connect with our teammates, and also understanding Maslow's hierarchy of needs, how small group communication can tie into those needs, and the group formation process. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye, everyone.